Mark Spitz, for example, he's a world champion. But what made him a world champion was that he seemed to, at the right time when the pressure's down, at the last few yards, he can get that lead. He's got enough left to make it. I fought Ken Norton my last fight. The fight was even up until the last round, but I had something that he didn't have, although I'm much older. That was the last minute kick.
What's that last minute kick? Is that something?
Just the stamina, the strength, the mental capacity to realize what's involved and how important it is to make your body do something that's really too tired to do. Your mind makes you do it. Mark Spitz, this Olympic track star was mentioning, he wasn't that much greater than all the people in the world, but sometimes he won by just that much. And so the champion is just one who can come out at the last minute and close the show. As I said, the star closed the show. A 14, 15 round fight, and it's even. And usually, this champion, you can depend on him to come through the last few seconds and find some energy.
Is it discipline?
Not only that, it's mental and physical. His body's in physical shape to do it, plus mentally too. You know, he's got himself in condition. Well, both fellas may be, sometimes the will can outdo the skill. And sometimes the fella's will is stronger than the man who's actually better physically. And the determination and weakens the other man just to see him so determined.
People are afraid of George Foreman. They talk about how hard he hits. The world has been deceived. You listen to me now. I've never told you wrong. The man don't hit hard. He knocked Joe Frazier down 6 times. He got up 6 times. Joe King Roman is Tokyo, Japan fighter, Puerto Rican champion, knocked him down 3 times, he jumped up 3 times. He knocked Ken Norton down 4 times, he jumped up 4 times. When have you ever saw the man say 7, 8, 9, 10, count this man out? When I hit Sonny Liston in the soccer fight, he stayed out for the count of 10. Zora Foley stayed out for the count of 10. Cleveland Williams stayed out for the count of 10. What Phil I have knocked out, stayed down. Sugar Ray Robinson knocked him out for the count of 30. Joe Louis, Marciano, Jack Dempsey, Jack Johnson, Archie Moore as a child, they knock him out cold. So this man has never knocked nobody out cold. He's a bully. He's slow. He has no skill, no footwork. He's awkward. And I gave him a name. I named Paul Patterson the Rabbit. I named Sonny Liston the Bear. And he shall be known as officially as the Mummy. The Mummy.
Why the Mummy?
Because he fights. When he's fighting, if you ever watch him in the ring, he drags like that after his opponent. and how's a mummy gonna catch me? When you're fighting a mummy, you just keep a step ahead of the mummy. See? Yeah, just move the mummy. No, mummy, I'm over here. No, mummy, I'm over here. Yeah, no, you moving too fast. The mummy doesn't move that fast.
You ever get frightened before a fight? You'll get nervous before a fight?
I'm nervous, but not frightened. I'm nervous because I have a great insight on, I just don't see the audience. Every camera, I see millions of people. Like the Frazier fight was watched by 1,000 million people, which is 5 times the population of every man in the United States. Just a picture arena with 1 million people. I mean, you can see, just think about 100 million and 1,000 million. And all those people and everything, that makes me nervous. Just the idea of me just being a humble fellow from Kentucky, got lucky in sports, and now here's the house, the fight in a place like Thailand, the government house, and Arabia, and the government officials took time off to watch the fight. And just for 2 in boxing, attracting so many people of all races.
We'll be live soon, Major Key.
Yo, I'm chilling, brother. I'm listening. I'm listening. You got to remind me about the topic, though, because I know I watched the topic, but then I was listening to the intro, and I forgot what the topic was.
Well, let's listen to the intro for 2 more minutes, and then we're going to go straight at it, my brother.
That sounds good with me, brother. Merry Christmas, by the way.
You too, you and all your loved ones.
Thank you, sir. You and yours as well.
Muhammad Ali, right here.
So wise until it clashes with the mentality, which is.
All right, let's go straight to the show. We're going to cook it in a minute. I just want to thank everybody who subscribed and, send the like buttons and notifications in the last couple months. Rapstar Knowledge, Rapstar Boxing Knowledge from England, doing a graveyard shift. I appreciate all the subscribers, all the people and all the love, and even all the hate. and even all the trolls. Merry Christmas to everyone. We're just going to talk about how we've had to adapt in 2020, how life changed everything and showed us a new beginning, and how today, for the same sport that we love, we had to adapt with the sport and know things had changed. But one thing I'm going to say to everyone today, even if the world had stopped, one thing that never stopped was boxing. Even if the world had come to a standstill, boxing still carried on. But one of the things that I would say is we need the right events, the right shows, and we need, obviously, the boxers to step up. Just like how we adapted, the boxing world had to adapt. Now it's time for the boxers to adapt. Promotional companies need to start working around each other, and we need to start seeing a new movement for the sport that we love. And we got to see that this sport is going to start growing in the time that when we need it to. Just like we've had big fights before, we want huge fights again. And to help me cook it up, I got people in the building. Give me a sec, and I'll introduce you. Yeah, we got Major Key, and we've got DJ Saddam. We got Cali in the house, and Major Key. Where you from, brother? I keep forgetting.
Well, me, Major Key.
Yeah, where you from again? Like where? What part of America?
I live in Florida, but I'm from the Bronx, New York. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I live in Florida right now. I've been living down here for quite a long time, and I love down here in Florida, man. It's a lot easier to raise kids in Florida instead of the crazy ass blocks in New York.
Hey, Major Key, thanks for pulling up in the building. Like I said, my brothers, in the boxing world, things have had to adapt, just like our lives had to adapt, just like we've had to adapt. And right now in 2021, I want to cook a show for today, for a Christmas special, to tell all the fans that the fights that we want, and fuck the politics, stop the capping, is the fights that we know as hardcore fans that we should be seeing. And no better than Major Key, who's a proper boxing man. Since I've been on the YTBC, Major Key introduced me and gave me a great welcoming. So thanks for that for 2020, Major Key.
Yo, no doubt, bro. And in 2021, you know what I'm saying, you already started off on a better foot than me. But look, we're gonna agree on this right now. One piece of information that I'm gonna give, wise words that I'm gonna give for the new year, is gonna be this. There's 8 to 9 billion women to 1 billion men. And the reason why, because we were warriors that went to war throughout the whole history of the war. It was always the men that went to war, not the women. The women stood home. And any able body that was a boy, man, teenager, it didn't matter. We went to war to fight and to make sure that we were respected. You know what I mean? So right now, we have these warriors right now in the ring, and we need to respect them. But they also need to respect the art of the war. You know what I'm saying? They need to respect the art of the war. And if they're not willing to do that, I don't know why it's not a game. I don't know why they even in the sport. This is a blood sport. You know what I'm saying? This is not a game. It's a blood sport. And so some of these people, if they're not really convinced, or somebody needs to teach them a lesson, I guess they need broken orbital bones or something to understand that this is serious. You know, and which is sad because you see people passing away like Patrick Day. You see people passing away. You see people getting injured. You know what I'm saying? Like even, you know, gold medalists and shit like that, you know, too long in the professional career, get hurt, injured. Somebody needs to understand and communicate to these young dudes that this is not a game. And if their parents, and you probably know what I'm talking about, but if their parents mislead them and don't tell them the truth and make them think that this is easy and this is all about negotiations, when it's about war in the ring, you got another thing coming, and you're gonna be in for a bad day at the office some days in the near future. So I mean that's my little piece right there. You know, we could keep cooking, but I know you got some other people on the panel.
Yeah, no, I appreciate what you're saying, bro. But like I said, mate, We've had to adapt in 2020. We've seen this whole world and we've come to a new beginning and trying to work forward to get forward. How does boxing give us the same situation and stop the fucking politics? We've had amazing fights in our lives. We've had some great people step up and give their life to the entertainment for all of us and give the, their soul to the sport. But these boxers of today, they got to stop capping, because I reckon we've got great fighters who can make great fights. And if we can get these fights like we've had before with the Haglers and the Ray Leonards, the Alis, with the Frasers, with the Durants and the Hearns, what stops our fights that we want today? And every fan seems to be hating on the fucking fight to happen. When we're in a pandemic like this, we should be getting the fights right now more than we've ever had the fights. Do you guys agree on that? And let's get Saddam into that. Saddam.
Yeah, go ahead, bro.
Yo, Saddam, what do you think about that, bro? We've had amazing fights before. Right now, we don't want to hear about the politics. We don't want to hear about the bullshit. We've had to see how we've had to survive and adapt again. Can the boxers start to realize that this is the time for these guys to step up and bring it to the sport so we can grow the fucking sport? What do you think about that?
I think a lot of time. Well, first of all, I want to say Merry Christmas to everyone. I hope you're all.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, please. Thank you, man. And happy holidays. I hope you got a chance to at least talk to your family and friends, even when you can't perhaps spend time with them. But going back to the topic, I think, one issue that I have, and I'm not going to name drop or call out any particular names of fighters, but one thing that keeps coming up in their public statements is this notion of using sides of the streets or names of the opposite promoters or their own promoters being used to avoid even marinating certain fights, avoid even talking about certain fights. So I feel even with different promoters, even with being on different networks or streaming apps, I think when two fighters genuinely want to fight each other, when they really want to go for it, whether it's for the titles or for a grudge match, or to decide who really is king of the hill in that particular division, I think nothing can stand in their way. And there are fights out there that would generate enough interest and therefore enough money for everyone involved that there is absolutely no reason for promoters not to work with each other, for those fighters not to be in the ring with each other.
Major Key, you're still in the building? Because I got another Major Key in the back.
Oh, no. That was me. I thought I dropped off. My bad. I don't want to interrupt the brother because he was making a point there.
Yeah, sorry. Carry on, brother.
No worries. I was just saying, there are fights that are being marinated right now that have been talked about for so long, and again, we can get into details just in a short moment, that can be made, can generate enough interest within the boxing community, and that can even cross over into a larger conversation and generate enough money for both fighters to be interested, for both promoters to be involved. So there's really no excuse to be made using this idea that promoters can't necessarily get together to make certain fights. And of course, we need to understand that just as some of us had to give up our retirement funds, just as we had significant amounts of our salaries being slashed, promotions taken away, raises taken away, jobs lost, our loved ones lost. You know, sometimes, especially at the level of our boxing superstars, they also need to take a step back and reassess their priorities as well, right? Say I was asking for $5 million for a fight of this magnitude before COVID. Would it be okay if I fought for 3? And again, who am I to say that this or that person should be paid less? Who am I to take bread off another man's table? Don't take me wrong. But, you know, sometimes I think the athletes too need to take a step back and understand that this is a situation that people have been facing nationwide and globally.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to touch on that. Can you guys hear me clearly, please? Can you?
Yes, really well.
Right. Having audio issues like always. How to touch on that is the fights that we're looking for is for the fans to be motivated, for the foundation of boxing to keep growing, so we can keep seeing the sport that we love in a great atmosphere, even in the bad times of our life. You know, we're talking about the fights like that we've made for 2021 already. Let's not forget, Ryan Garcia, Luke Campbell is on the 2nd of January. Chocolatito and Estrada has been already confirmed. Does anybody know the date of Chocolatito and Estrada?
It's somewhere in February, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. It's on ESPN though.
Right. Then we've got in the making right now, Josh Taylor versus Jose Ramirez, which is another fight which is in the making, which you can class as a done deal. But the fights that we really want are not really getting talked about a lot, but there's no movement. Errol Spence, Terence Crawford, these kind of fights have been spoken about, and there's a lot of bullshit and capping. A side, B side, 60-40s. And in this time of our life, when what we're going through in the world, we want to see these athletes talk about percentages on the TV. I don't think so. How do you feel about it, Major Key? We want to see the fucking fights and stop the capping.
Yeah, and I'm gonna bring a different perspective though, even though it's about the percentages and stuff like that. So, Saddam, let me ask you this. Just because of the name Saddam, you know what I'm saying? Because my brother's Muslim. Are you Muslim?
No, sir.
Okay, so that's why I asked, because I don't like to assume. But the reason why I asked that was because I was just watching a channel right before Rapstar, and it's with a Muslim brother, which this is the reason why I started watching him. You know what I'm saying? I respect all cultures, all religions. You know what I'm saying? Things like that. And I was listening to him.
Same here, by the way. I have great respect for Islam, Judaism, Christianity,
all the major religions, the old religions, I got respect for. Period. I'm not a religious person myself per se, but I'm very spiritual. But the reason I'm so spiritual is because I learned through religion. You know what I'm saying? Religion is a great roadmap to me. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, not to get off topic, but this one brother here, you know, he seems to be always lopsided in sort of a way that is it's very biased. And I'm not gonna mention his name. But what he did say today was pretty much that Canelo was cherry picking Abner Yildirim. I have a video before, you know what I'm saying, like from a couple days ago, where I said I don't want to hear nobody saying this in a month from now when they sign a contract for Abner Yildirim, because he was the mandatory for the WBC belt anyway. He was the one that they put against Canelo when he bid for it, because we already knew Canelo was going to get the opportunity because he was the franchise champion when he bid for it in the first place. So they gave Canelo the first opportunity, Then his opponent was Avni Yildirim because he was the mandatory. Then he took step aside money. So Canelo offered something to Plant. Plant didn't want it. It was too short notice for him. Callum Smith took it. Callum Smith lost. Right? So now his mandatory is who? Avni Yildirim. So he's going to have to fight him. Right? And so going back to what everybody's been talking about is like, what are we expecting in 2021? So we have to understand that Avni Yildirim, whether we consider him good or not, you know what I'm saying, he was the mandatory. Nobody else positioned themselves like that to be the mandatory. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's talking about cherry picking or why don't you fight Charlo? Charlo's at 160. He wants to move up and make a name for himself at 168. Great. Because right now, people are even saying Terrence Bud Crawford, oh, yeah, he did a bunch of shit at 140, but he didn't do shit at 147. You know what I'm saying? So, like, imagine, what has Charlo done at 168? And he's saying he wants to, Canelo's saying that he wants to become undisputed at 168. So these are the things that we need, one of the things that we need to take into consideration for 2021 is that he's going to fight Yildirim first. And a lot of people are going to hate on that, but they already said that. The WBC said that beforehand. They said whoever wins this WBC belt between Callum Smith and Canelo, they're going to have to fight the mandatory for that belt, which is Avni Yildirim. They said that before the fight, a week before that. So you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that, because actually Avni Yildirim has been a mandatory for that belt ever since he lost that fight against Andre Dirrell. That was stopped due to the cuts and went right there to the scorecards. So he has been the mandatory for that belt before Dirrell and Benavidez fought for it. He was supposed to face the winner of that fight that happened in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And then Benavidez didn't fight him, fought someone else, lost the belt on the scale. And then, like you said, when this fight was arranged and when they agreed to put up the WBC belt at stake for the winner of this fight, for the Smith-Canelo fight, that was with the understanding that the winner will have to fight the mandatory.
Exactly.
Look, I understand all that, yeah? But look, I just want to say this. Can I just speak? I want to say this, right? I don't have that much time, but what my problem is, the fights that the fans want, I want you guys to tell me what are the fights with me that really need to be made for 2021. I mean, let me just give you a few names. Is it time that Beterbiev and Bivol fight? Is it time those two guys, is it time for them to fight now and bring the biggest fight to boxing? Beterbiev versus Bivol.
Yes.
Okay, so
Joshua Fury.
Okay, well, Joshua Fury is the biggest fight for boxing. I wanted to leave that for a moment, but if you're going to bring up Joshua and Fury, that is the biggest fight that we can get in 2021. But I wanted to know that who do we want for, like in England, we want Joe Joyce versus Alexander Usyk. Would you guys be happy with that fight if 2021 produced Joe Joyce, Alexander Usyk?
Can I say something about the 175 division for 1 second?
For sure.
So actually, the first fight that Top Rank announced for 2021 is for the belt that Canelo vacated after beating Kovalev for it and taking it from him. So Joe Smith Jr. is fighting the Russian Vlasov in February. I don't know the exact date, but that will be for the vacant WBO belt. So if Smith Jr. wins that fight, that actually is a great opportunity for either Bivol or Beterbiev And I think it will be Beterbiev because he is with Top Rank, and he will certainly be given priority for it, to gain that belt from an American, really establish himself in the eyes of the American fans as well, and then go into an undisputed fight, perhaps with Bivol. Because as exciting as it is for boxing junkies like us to see a Bivol and Beterbiev fight, unless they can build up some of this mythology, and unless they can find ways of marketing these fighters to the American fans, I feel like some of the meaning of that encounter might be lost in translation. But it's much easier to sell that fight if it is for the undisputed championship of the world at the light heavyweight division. So I would rather have one of them go against the winner of Joe Smith Jr. versus Vlasov, and it seems like Smith Jr. can actually win the title. And he had a good story. He is the everyman. He is, he is a working man. And we all know, I'm not going to racialize this discussion, but we know that whenever there's a great white hope in any division, certain kinds of fans cling on to that almost unquestioningly. So I feel like that fight can be much more meaningful if either Smith Jr. can walk into it as an undisputed fight, or if Beterbiev or Bivol can take the belt from him and then go into facing the other opponent.
And that's a great point. We've got still Kovalev in that division. And I think the biggest fight in that division is Beterbiev and Bivol. But I want to go to Major Key. How do you feel about that division?
No, I like everything he said. Me personally, from what I'd like to see a Inoue Casimero. I'd like to see Berchelt Valdez, which I believe they renegotiated and signed again. I'd like to see, and I'm trying to move up from the lower weight divisions from who I'm interested in watching, not necessarily every single weight division, but then I'd like to see, certain fighters at 135, the lightweight division, just step up competition. I'd like to see Taylor versus Ramirez at 140. At 147, I want to see. I want to see. What's his name? Crawford versus Spence. Yeah, there's a lot of fights that I want to see going up in the business.
What about these guys? Let me just give you a list. Just say yes or no. What do you think about? We've got this fight we want Tank Davis in 2021. Gervonta Tank Davis in a big fight with someone such as Breschet or Lomachenko. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't think he's gonna defend at 130, man. I think it was a stretch just to get down there. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he did a 3-month training camp just to get down to 130. I don't think he wants to do that.
Yeah, but we got to get some fights for Tank Davis. If Tank Davis is going to build the momentum.
But let's look at 135. There's enough heat at 135. What? Like for example, I'm going to be honest with you. Everybody's talking about that they earned the chips to fight Teofimo Lopez. Why doesn't Devin Haney and Gervonta Davis fight each other?
I was coming to that fight next, but I've got a few more opponents for Devin Haney because Devin Haney's in prime position as a mandatory for him is Ryan Garcia and Luke Campbell winner. So if we
all of them, why don't we do a World Boxing Super Series? Why don't we do that?
Yeah, but we got Nakatani, Devin Haney. Nakatani is a big fight. I agree. Hey, that's a big fight for Devin Haney. I mean, I think Devin Haney can build that fight and sell that fight well to the public. I think Devin Haney with Javier Fortuna, That's a big fight. He could build that fight and sell that fight to the people on DAZN. You know, Devin Haney and 2021 can have a big year. And if Devin Haney has one of those fights here, Major Key, where he looks phenomenal, like let's say he dominates one of these opponents, then people will start calling for the Teofimo Lopez fight, and Devin Haney will not look like he's clout chasing in any way. He will look
Because
like,
right now he does look like he's clout chasing right now though.
yeah, but
You know what I mean?
if Devin Haney proves to the world that he can do a great performance against Javier Fortuna, a Ryan Garcia, a Luke Campbell, Jorge Linares, I think these opponents, if he could be dominant with them, then we'd be start saying Devin Haney, Teofimo Lopez. How do you feel about that, Saddam?
I think this is certainly the year when Devin Haney has to step up the competition and do that in a real way. Rather than just chasing big name opponents, maybe chase down some of these common opponents, some of the gatekeepers of the 135 division. You know, I want to thank Punch Drunk again for the live last night when he brought in Teofimo Lopez Jr. and Sr. and Bill Haney later on. You know, they were saying, they actually confirmed the rumors that Top Rank was trying to put together a fight on the Puerto Rican Parade Day in New York if Verdejo was to go through Nakatani. So
Who said that? Bill Haney?
No, Taylor himself. He himself said that.
Who? Teal?
Yeah.
Oh shit, man! You know what? Then I gotta take a little bit of credit for that because I've been fucking with Senior for the longest, or what we call him Junior. You know what I'm saying? But everybody,
that's funny.
you know
I know. I heard that.
His name is Junior. Yeah, Dad. But you know what I'm saying? Like I've been fucking with him for a minute. Him and Bill Haney about their sons fighting Verdejo. I've been a big supporter of Verdejo. But I mean, he still looked good. But damn, man, he got sloppy, and he even said it. He said that he didn't listen to Reynoso. Reynoso said, "Listen, you need to box now. You're winning," and instead he wanted to fucking knock him out, and that's why he got knocked the fuck out. Because they say the old adage is you live by the sword, you die by the sword. He came in with so much freaking velocity to a jab that he got knocked out by that jab that he ran into. And that's sad, man, because he was doing such a great job, man. But, he was anxious. He was anxious because this is the first time he's been in the limelight like that since the time he lost.
Yeah.
And it was a sad thing to watch. But, I still got faith in him. I know he's going to come back, but it's going to be a tough road for him now because people counted him out. They counted him out in the first place. Now it's going to be even tougher to come back. Because he wants to rematch with Nakatani, but Nakatani doesn't need to give him the rematch. You know what I'm saying? And
right.
That's the whole thing. So he's gonna have to find a different route.
I mean, look though, right? We got to start getting these fights for 2021 to keep our boxing sport alive. If these guys keep capping and they keep playing politics, right, they're gonna lose out on a great opportunity. Because as we know, they can't cover certain stadiums. Texas is fully booked unless they book ahead. These guys have to start really getting their fights together. And I think Devin Haney, he needs the big fight. And if he gets the big fight, I think we can start pushing for, if he wins very convincingly, I think we can start pushing for Teofimo Lopez and Devin Haney. That'll be a huge fight if Teofimo doesn't move up. But as long as Devin Haney looks good in a performance against a top 5 opponent, this will bring back a lot of light to the boxing if he does that. I want to talk about another fight with you, great gentlemen. I've got some fights here from even England. Billy Joe Saunders against Gennady Golovkin. Even Demetrius Andrade against Gennady Golovkin. We need to start getting these guys in a big fight. Billy Joe Saunders and Demetrius Andrade need a fucking fight, a real opponent. How do you feel about that, Major Key? Demetrius Andrade or Billy Joe? Step up to fucking Gennady Golovkin. What do you think?
Yeah, well, Andre is you know, he's getting to the back end of his career, but we already know that how old Triple G is. So you know, Triple G doesn't need to step up a weight division, but if he wants to, then it's up to him. But Andre, he's still got time to do it, even though it's not recommended. You know what I mean? To step up to a big dude like Billy Joe Saunders at 168. You know what I'm saying? These are not the smaller weight divisions where you only have 3 pounds between weight classes. You're talking about 8 pounds. You know what I mean? And so and then with the retention of it, you know, like or the you know, what do you call that? Rehydration and all that. You know, it's gonna be a little more difficult for him to fight somebody like a Billy Joe, and I'm talking about Andre, so like a Billy Joe Saunders, but he's got the better chance of fucking with him at his awkward style, because when it comes down to it, Golovkin is just a come forward fighter. He just wants to fucking try to knock you out, and we all know that. You know, he's a good boxer. He's not a class boxer though.
Mm.
You know, and so it makes it difficult for me to see Gennady Golovkin stepping up to a Billy Joe Saunders, right? And just whooping his ass. You know,
So maybe Jamal
we wouldn't even
Charlo. What about
Billy
Jamal
Joe Saunders if
Charlo?
he wasn't good.
What about Jamal Charlo and Gennady Golovkin? They're both at the same 160 right now. What do you think about that fight?
Jamal Charlo, who?
Gennady Golovkin.
That is a great fight, and I actually just said that on my last stream. I said that. Charlo, Golovkin. My complaint was that everybody was saying that Canelo was ducking everybody, and I said these guys are at their own weight class. They should be fighting each other instead of clout chasing Canelo, because they just want the bag. And the thing is that they need to create a name for themselves, then move up and make themselves a threatening name at that division. But right now, they're not even fighting each other in their own weight class. They're just worried about Canelo in another weight class. You know?
Yes, I'm asking you, that fight would be a big fight, wouldn't it? Jamal Charlo, Gennady Golovkin, 2021. What do you think about that fight, Saddam?
Honestly, I think there are a lot of great fights to be made at and around 160 and 168. If you ask me personally, I would be much more interested in a fight between Demetrius Andrade and Jamal Charlo, actually.
Yeah, are they both at the same weight?
Yeah, they're both at 160. I'm talking about Big Charlo, the one that's spelled with an A, who is now the WBC middleweight champion, and WBO middleweight champion is Demetrius Andrade. So they are in the same division. He had signed a deal, as you know, years and years back when he was a champion in the junior middleweight division at 154 to fight the other twin. I don't want to go into the details of that story, but I know that before the Big Charlo moved to the middleweight division, and when he was fighting J. Rock Williams in Galen Center here in Los Angeles, Andrade actually rushed the press conference after that fight, after the Charlo, who is currently fighting in middleweight, had knocked out Williams. So there's already a feud between them. There's already no lost between the two of them and between Andrade and the Charlo twins. So that fight, as a grudge match, as a middleweight unification, already I think has a great narrative around it. I also like that as a style matchup too. Andrade is a southpaw, has a very eclectic style. If he can bring back the Andrade, who was moving in and out in this way against Willie Nelson, for example, that fighter would be a problem for anyone in the middleweight division or perhaps even at 168. But let's stay focused on that specific fight. Jermall Charlo has a great jab, has a lot of power in both of his hands. And when he switches on, he can inflict a lot of punishment on his opponents, and not only for a flashy one-punch knockout, but as we have seen against Derevianchenko, as a prolonged attack over 12 rounds as well. So I feel that is really the match that I would see, that I would want to see
great.
at middleweight.
Okay, so the ultimate match for you is Demetrius Andrade versus Jermall Charlo. And that's a good matchup. And it's about time both of them stepped up and start fighting the greatest competition soon. Because if they can start fighting each other and make a statement, then they'll be in line for Canelo for another great showdown. How do you feel about that, Major Key?
Yeah, no, I like that. And first and foremost, this is the last question I'm gonna answer because my battery's low and I gotta wake up early. I gotta take my girls back to a different side of Florida tomorrow. But let me just say shout out to the people in the chat, D Hodges, you know what I'm saying, Juan Free Smoke, everybody. Even though Juan Free Smoke over here hating on Verdejo, you know what I'm saying? You know, that's my boy though, you know what I'm saying? So I'll let him get a little slack. But no, when it comes to, and again, this is my last answer here. I like what he said. I believe that Charlo should be fighting Andrade, you know what I'm saying? And I felt like they should have been fighting each other for the longest. Just like I said, like with Triple G and all of that, these people are in the same weight class, man. Like I don't understand why they keep calling out Canelo. I get that they're trying to make the bag, but you know what the problem is when everybody's trying to do the Mayweather technique, they forget that he fought everybody. He was Pretty Boy before he became Money May, and he led up to fighting De La Hoya. That's when he turned into Money May. You know what I'm saying? So he did the groundwork to lead up to becoming Money May, and nobody's doing that right now. Nobody's taking names in, and that's where the boxing fans are upset because they keep asking for $74.99, $74.99 every fucking bullshit ass fight that ain't worth it. At least in America, I don't know how it is over there. You know what I'm saying? But over here, every pay-per-view, $74.99, $74.99, unless you got Mike Tyson fighting Roy Jones, $49.99. But damn, like I'm not trying to pay that, and I'm the biggest dude. Everybody comes to my house to watch the fight. I'm the one that pays for it. I don't want to use crack streams, bro. I don't want to have to use that. I'm trying to pay and support the sport. But if you're going to keep trying to cheat me out of my money, my hard-earned money, then I'm going to have to fucking say fuck you, and I'm not even going to watch it. I'll just fucking watch a live stream and support the channel or somebody else. Give them a little donation. Give them a little super chat. You know what I'm saying? I'm sick and tired of this shit. You hear me, though?
Hey, I hear you loud and clear. I didn't think you were finished. Okay.
No, because I don't want to run on too long because my battery, again, is dying and shit. But I'm going to chime off, man. I'm going to fall back for a couple minutes and recharge, but I'm probably going to go to sleep. But yeah, I always appreciate you having me on, Rapstar. And what was your name, brother? Saddam?
DJ Saddam, yes. Thank you, Major Key.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Aki, I appreciate you also stopping up with us. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you, man. It's a privilege.
Hey, Major Key, you have a great Christmas. I'll see you soon. And let's get ready for 2021, bro. Because
hell yeah.
One of the main things that I want everybody in the chat and everybody on the panel to realize, we should appreciate that we're here at 2020 to at least have a great 2021. You know?
Hell yeah, bro. And I want to make sure that when I wake up, I see a 6-hour stream from Rapstar. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, fuck that bullshit, Major Key. But
Merry Christmas to everybody, bro.
Hey, this YouTube's a hard grind, bro. It's a hard grind, but we love boxing.
It is. Yes, sir. All right, bro. Easy.
Easy.
Merry Christmas.
Hey, yes. So let's get to some of the fights that I want to see. I think the hardcore fans want to see, and some of the casual fans probably want to see. How about Regis Prograis against Zepeda? We saw how Zepeda performed, and we know that Regis Prograis had a great performance against Josh Taylor. He lost that fight, but some people said it could have gone either way. So how do you feel about Regis Prograis versus Zepeda for 2021? I think that'd be a good fight, you know.
I think I like Prograis. I like Prograis. I liked him before he faced Taylor. I actually favored him against Taylor as well. Taylor really won me over that night, but I don't. Prograis also gave a good account of himself. You know, he could have put some extra sauce on it, so to speak, because he knew that he was in the UK. He knew that he needed to bring it to his opponent and really make a statement if he were to get a decision. And at the end of the day, he came up short, but it wasn't the kind of performance that in any way deserved to be discounted or written off at that weight. And as far as I know, he still wants to stay at 140. I think he can still become a world champion at 140. And he was supposed to, as you know, face Maurice Hooker, who was also coming off his own loss at a unification with Jose Ramirez. So I'm hoping that he will face a credible opponent at that weight, like Zepeda, who emerged again from one of the what was chosen as one of the fights of the year here on Rapstar Boxing Knowledge. Am I right? Right? That was one of the top five fights of the year that we chose here.
Yeah, that's facts. Zepeda was one of the top 5 fights of the year for 2020. Zepeda versus Regis Prograis would bring a lot of excitement to the division for the super lightweight. It would bring some excitement for them, and I think a lot of fans would definitely tune in. But I want to talk about some other fights because we're gonna miss some fights. As you know, there's some fights that I've just kind of like got on top of my head. But I want to see now for Australia, Tim Tszyu. I want Tim Tszyu to step up and fight somebody in the 154 pounds. How do you feel about Tim versus Tony Harrison, or an opponent where he could fight in the top 10?
Now, I don't want to disrespect anyone from down under, so to speak, nor do I want to disrespect the son of legend. But I think you might take a look at Tony Harrison's record and somehow make the mistake of thinking that he is on his way of becoming journeyman or a gatekeeper at 154. But I think he is one of the best all-around boxer punchers in that division. And I think he gave a great account of himself in the 2 fights against Jermell Charlo. You might know, he was one of the very last students of Emmanuel Stewart before he passed away. His father as well, who passed away this year due to complications related to COVID. Harrison is very well trained. He uses his jab really well. He can actually fight in the pocket really well as he has shown in the Charlo rematch after the second round knockdown. He has no compunctions about walking into power. I feel Harrison is a little too much to chew for Tim Tszyu at this point of his career.
So what
I
do you
think
think
we're
about
too
cabin
early
chili?
for him.
There's messages coming in. Cabin chili recipe thinks, what about Edison Lara? Edison Lara versus Tszyu. Do you think Edison Lara and Tszyu is that too much of a matchup for Tim right now?
I would probably say the same thing. The only reason I would give it a little more time, and the only reason I would give a little more chance to Tszyu in that matchup is Lara is much older than Tony Harrison. So I feel like, we might see him on one of those nights where he has suddenly aged out. So maybe that could be Tszyu's chance. But I would rather see him maybe set up the competition in a way Conor Benn has recently done in the welterweight division, and maybe face more of a top 10 ranked contender rather than one of the more elite names, one of the former champions in the division. Could you give us one of those names? Maybe not the Harrisons, Herds, and Laras of the division, but someone who is
like a
ranked
gatekeeper,
little lower.
like
Yes,
a bit of a
I
gatekeeper,
think a lot of
lower
maybe
gatekeeper. Are we looking
like
for a bit of a
something like
lower gatekeeper?
like a Formella of 154.
See, Lara and Harrison, if you think that's too much of a step up for Tim, right this second. At 154.
I think so. Respectfully.
We got Jarrett at
Respectfully.
154. We've got Jarrett Hurd. Again, that's maybe
You're
a bit.
right. Yeah.
I mean, Tim has to step up soon, and he's flying the flag for Australia. He's got to get the right opponents in. I think. What about Michael Sorrow would be a good for Tszyu? That's what a Gabin chili recipe says. Michael Sorrow.
Why not? Maybe, depending on who is going to win this Patrick Teixeira Brian Castaño fight. I had heard the rumors. I don't know how true they are, but I heard that if Teixeira wins, Tim Tszyu might actually get a shot at that title against Patrick Teixeira, who is promoted by Golden Boy. I still don't know who takes care of Tim Tszyu internationally, but for whatever reason, I was told that if Teixeira wins, he might have a shot. If Castaño wins, since that title is going to PBC in that scenario, we might be heading into a fight for the undisputed championship with Castaño and Jermell Charlo facing each other.
Well, on that note, smash the like button, everyone. Subscribe to the channel if you've never been here before, if you want to, and press the notification for the next show in. What I'd like to say is let's get to some of the messages. I want to see Maloney versus Franco 3 after Maloney, what he went through so that he could redeem himself off that robbery. Now, that's going to be a bigger fight now in 2021 than what that fight could ever have been before, because of that whole controversy of the robbery against Franco. We saw Maloney continuously jabbing the fuck out of that eye. Some people said there was a slight headbutt in the early round. You couldn't really see that headbutt as it was like anything. You can keep going back. It's very hard to tell. But the fight with Maloney against Franco will definitely be a big fight for 2021 due to the controversy. You'd be happy to see that fight, Saddam?
Absolutely. I was watching that card because I'm a huge fan of Bob Crawford, and I thought that was a very controversial decision. I think Maloney deserves another shot, whatever one may think of that decision. And really, they stopped the entire thing and replayed over and over again for almost half an hour. And to my eyes, they still couldn't get it right. I think that that was caused by the jab. And the bittersweet part is, or the sweeter part is, as you pointed out, that has actually drawn much more attention to a third match between Franco and Maloney. And the rumor is that that fight is going to be one of the fights on the top ranked card in Australia if everything can be set up for Teofimo Lopez to defend his title against George Ferocious Kambosos Jr. in Australia. So both of the twins are apparently going to be on that card, with Franco facing it was Andrew Maloney.
Andrew Maloney, right?
Yeah, I think it's Andrew who was facing Franco. The other twin is going to fight at the bantamweight as well, and then Tim Tszyu might be actually on that card. So it's going to be a big event. It's going to be a big event in Australia. Internationally, there's going to be more attention, more eyes on this third fight between Franco and Maloney. So at least some good seems to have come out from that controversial decision.
So that's a big thing for those guys in Australia. They're going to come back. Both the twins are going to be fighting on one card. Maloney gets a chance to redeem himself. And, you know, for the people who said it was a robbery, that's going to be a fight that we're going to be looking forward to in 2021. But in order for me to keep going forward, I want to kind of like, you know, match up some of the other fighters like Shakur Stevenson. I want to match Shakur Stevenson up with a big fight in 2021. And if I keep looking around, the real fight I want for Shakur Stevenson is Lomachenko. I think that's a huge fight. I think if Shakur Stevenson and Lomachenko can happen, it could bring a lot to the division of 130. What do you think about that? Do you think that's a possible match that we can get? Or you just think that Lomachenko is not going to give Shakur Stevenson that chance to get in the ring with him?
Honestly, after having spent half an hour of my life that I will never get back watching that interview that Lomachenko gave to the Ukrainian journalist, I'm absolutely not sure what Lomachenko is going to do next with his career, because he seems to be dead set to get that rematch from Teofimo Lopez, and I don't see that happening anytime soon. So as much as I would like to see Shakur fighting a huge marquee opponent and get that sort of attention from boxing fans all over the world, I'm not even sure if that's a real possibility. And I think, Shakur is one of those generational talents who can take on these sorts of challenges relatively early in their careers. And let's not we don't need to talk Shakur down to talk him up. We are talking about an Olympic silver medalist. We're talking about someone who is already a world champion at 126 and who has moved up to 130 because he thinks he has a real chance at ultimately unifying titles at 130. And as far as I know, his handlers have already promised him a shot at the winner of Carl Frampton, Jamal Herring. So maybe that's a more realistic fight to arrange for him. I think Frampton is probably going to take that fight.
Frampton against Jamal Herring or Frampton against Shakur Stevenson?
Frampton against Herring is happening, I think, in January. That fight is already arranged, as far as I know.
I need to check on BoxRec to see if the fight's 100% on point for January. But I think Shakur Stevenson, even a fight of the winner against Frampton and Herring, is that what you were saying, that you would like to see one of the winner of that fight Shakur?
I think if that fight happens, Frampton is probably going to win, and Frampton against Shakur would be a good fight. Shakur against Berchelt would be a good fight. And I think those fights are high profile enough for Shakur to take another step forward in his career, to take a step forward towards unifying titles at 130. And, again, in this case, I'm not saying that Shakur can't step into the ring against Lomachenko in his next fight. I think he's ready. He's more than ready.
I like what some of the subscribers are saying, though. Somebody said even we can get Tevin Farmer. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think those are all great fights.
And somebody came back to us on the messages that I wanted to let you know, who were tuned in. They said, what about Austin Trout for Tim Tszyu? Because we were looking for an opponent. I think Austin Trout could be a step up. Good name for Tim. How do you feel about that one?
I'm just going to be a little corny and say no doubt. Absolutely. Austin, no doubt, Trout is a great gatekeeper at that division. That's what wasn't Canelo's win against Austin Trout what ultimately got him the Money Mayweather fight.
Yeah.
So ever since then, Trout has been a legitimate gatekeeper at 154.
Yeah, Smoke Free Boxing Talk is saying that fight with Frampton and Herring is not scheduled yet. He just checked it. Mr. Popo says that Tim Tszyu mops the floor with Austin Trout. 154 lacks notable names right now. I mean, he's kind of right. Apart from Jamal Charlo, there's no really big names in 154 really that people are screaming about. You know what I mean? And on that point, I want to keep going and keep cooking some other fights that people keep to remember in 2021. And that's going to be our Joe Joyce against Alexander Usyk. Joe Joyce against otherwise Filip Hrgović. Joe Joyce against Joseph Parker. It's time for Joe Joyce to make a mark in 2021. What one of those names would we like to put the Joe Joyce against? Who would we like to see Joe Joyce fight in 2021? Go ahead, Saddam.
Look, I think we need to be fair. If Dubois had emerged as the winner from that fight, we would be looking forward to mixing these names up with Triple D, right? And that was also what his promoter Frank Warren had in his sights. So I think it's absolutely fair that Joyce deserves a shot at one of the bigger names and one of the emergent names in that division, or one of the former champions in the heavyweight division. So I would love to. I know that he called out Usyk. I know that they have already faced each other in that semi-professional tournament. What was it called?
There was a tournament that he fought Alexander Usyk in, right?
Right. So they faced each other. I think it was like a 5-rounder of some sort, and Usyk won a decision. At any rate, so there's already a background. Joe Joyce already called him out, and I think, no disrespect to Chisora, but Joe Joyce, I think, would be a more credible opponent for Usyk in the heavyweight division. I understand that he has a mandatory status already lined up. He might not look or not pursue a fight that's not going to bring him any rewards, and that carries a certain risk. In that case, I'd love to see Joe Joyce against Joseph Parker, as you said. I'd love to see Joe Joyce against who else did you mention, Rapstar?
Philip Hrgovic.
Oh, that would be a great fight. Both of them really want to take that next step where they could be granted a title opportunity. That would be actually a cracking fight, right? Philip Hrgovic against Joe Joyce. Yeah,
Well, there's
all of
big
those
things
are
for
great
Joe
fights.
Joyce. I think there's big things for Joe Joyce in 2021. And we hopefully will see him in a bigger fight. I just want to mention on some of the other fights that I'd like to see, and I think the fans would as well, is how do we feel about the fight between... Give me a second, please. How do we feel about a fight between... I know this is a bit far-fetched, but we're going to go there anyway, is Canelo Alvarez. And really, if Canelo Alvarez really wants to go and test the waters against Bivol or Beterbiev, would anybody think that could happen? Does anybody think that could have happened in the near future?
I'll try to be a little funny this time and ask you a question, Rapstar. Do you like your cinnamon as sticks, or do you prefer ground cinnamon?
Go ahead.
I think at 175, Beterbiev would crush Canelo's soul. He doesn't want any part of a fight against Beterbiev in 2021. The only way I can see Canelo facing Beterbiev is maybe in 2-3 years from now, when Beterbiev is on the verge of retirement and is somehow still holding or most titles at light heavyweight. It's Beterbiev has incredible pedigree in the sport. He's called the Beast, and he does really cut a fearful figure, but he is also a battle-hardened amateur who chased Kovalev basically out of the amateur system in Russia because he was always one step ahead of him. He stopped Alexander Gvozdyk when they faced each other as amateurs in the light heavyweight division. And he lost a competitive fight against Usyk at the heavyweight division at the amateur level, right? Which corresponds to cruiserweight in the professional system. So you're talking about someone who has immense experience, a very high level of IQ and intelligence in the ring, someone who can really break your body down over the course of an entire fight, and someone who can take your punches as well. I don't know if you remember his fight against Callum Johnson. Yes, he was knocked down, but he just got up, shook it off, and then continued destroying that man. If you watched the
That was
fight
Callum
against
Johnson's first loss.
Yeah, that's right. Callum Johnson walked into that fight as an undefeated, serious contender. So, and I think more of our listeners would be familiar with the unification fight he had against Gvozdyk. I think that's a fearsome opponent for Canelo. I don't think he is in any rush to face him. I don't think he's in any rush to move up to 175. That's why Bivol's handlers were trying to convince Canelo that their men could move down to 168 to seek an opportunity with Canelo. I think that's a more realistic fight, but I think Canelo will go for another title, especially if that mandatory defense against Avni Yildirim materializes in February. I think Canelo would rather face one of the champions at 168. And I think he's going to continue to collaborate with the Zone and with Eddie Hearn. So I have the sense that he's going to face first Avni Yildirim in a mandatory defense and then maybe move on to Billy Joe Saunders. And I think Saunders needs a tune-up as well. Saunders needs a tune-up before he faces.
Everything you've touched on, I appreciate that. And what I would like to say is, though, coming into this 2021, out of all the fights that me and you discussed, and there's more fights to come, we do want more than 50% of these fights to happen for the fans. We don't want no capping. We don't want no bullshit. We want at least some of these fights to materialize to keep the boxing motivation alive and start building the foundation of boxing where we need it at the most. And there's no bigger fight for us in England, for you guys in America. We don't want to see this A side, B side too much on the TV. We don't want to hear the fucking capping. We want to see these fights. And you guys need to push for this fight for Errol Spence Jr. versus Terence Crawford. Because if not, Manny Pacquiao might come and spoil this shit again in this generation. We want Errol Spence Jr. as fans to fight Terence Crawford, and whoever needs to move a little bit left, a little bit right, fuck the A side, the B side. If you want to become great, you got to sometimes take that ego away from your head, just like Mayweather did with Oscar De La Hoya. Mayweather was the B side. Mayweather got 30%. Oscar De La Hoya was the king, but then Mayweather took over the great. In this welterweight division, we don't want no capping. We don't want no bullshit. We don't want no politics. We want the fucking fight. For Errol Spence Jr. against Terence Crawford for the welterweight unified titles. We need to get that fight, bro. It's very, very important for the young boxers coming up to see these guys doing it in their 30s because they don't have much time left themselves. You know? So this is the time to get one of the best fights in the welterweight division. What do you feel about that one?
I really want that fight. I also want to be realistic about it. So I'm not really sure if we are going to see it in 2021. But as a Bob Crawford fan, I also have to recognize that, at least at the moment, all the bargaining chips are in Errol Spence's hands. He has 2 of the belts. He is the more established person at the welterweight division. He seems to have more options in front of him. And as you mentioned, he also has the youth slightly on his side as well. I'm saying this not from the perspective of breaking down the fight, but from the perspective of thinking about how we can think about this fight in terms of getting it arranged and thinking about who has a stronger hand at the negotiations table. So we basically come back to something you have said very early in this broadcast. Sometimes fighters need to take a step back and start making certain kinds of compromises, especially for the sake of arranging these sort of legacy fights. And in Bud Crawford's case, even though I think he beats Spence at this moment, even though I think he beats Spence probably even 2 years from now, in this sport and in life in general, there are no guarantees. The clock is running against him. It's not in his favor. So if he wants to fight Spence sooner than later, and that being either in his next fight or as one of his next 2 fights, he needs to be able to say, like you did, okay, screw it, I'm willing to take 40%, or I'm willing to take 45%, or let's both take 40% and let the winner take an extra 20, or I'll take 40, but there will be a rematch and let the winner take 60 in the rematch. The options are endless. But if Bud Crawford wants this fight, he needs to press to have it sooner than later, because he is closer to retirement than Spence is. He has no intention of moving to a higher weight class. So he has still a lot of business to do in the welterweight division. It's to his benefit in the short term and in the midterm to make certain kinds of compromises, to make certain kinds of sacrifices, to make this fight happen. He needs to fight Spence sooner than later. And I'm not making an argument that's based on his legacy. I think Crawford is already a legacy fighter. He might not have established himself as one of the greatest ever, but considering the standards that we have for the Hall of Fame, being a three-division champion, being undisputed in one of the divisions, those are already momentous accomplishments. No one can slight the legacy of Terence Bud Crawford, but the fact remains that if he wants to become undisputed in the welterweight division, he needs to go through Spence, and Spence seemed to be in a stronger position now at the negotiating table. So Bud needs to make certain compromises to get that fight sooner than later.
And that makes a lot of sense. But like I said, if Errol Spence and Terence Crawford doesn't happen for the fans, and Manny Pacquiao at 42 years old decides to gate crash that event and take a Spence or Crawford fight, I think it will just not look good on these younger lions, showing that they're just capping really, and they're not making the fight. That's not going to be good for 2021. I think Terence Crawford and Errol Spence has been marinating for a long time. One of them, if they believe they can beat the other one, well, if Terence Crawford believes he can beat Errol Spence, I don't think a 60-40 deal is much of a bad deal. He maybe can negotiate a little bit more. And if he feels that he's great, then he needs to show everybody. And maybe if he's the B side, he will definitely become the A+ side if he beats Errol Spence Jr. So I think that fight needs to happen, and that will bring a good momentum into 2021. But the biggest fight that I want everybody to know that a lot of people are very, very, very excited about, and that is if we could get the biggest heavyweight fight with Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua. I don't know how they're going to do that with the WBO and Alexander Usyk in position for the WBO title as a mandatory challenger for Anthony Joshua. But if they could work around Usyk and the WBO, that would be one of the biggest fights that fans are looking forward to in 2021. I'm sure you guys are, and I'm sure you are as well, Saddam. Is that one of the biggest heavyweight fights that we want to see in 2021, sir?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's a very meaningful fight in so many ways. I always value unifications and fights for undisputed world championship above any other fight. And it's just also already on paper has all the markings of a crossover event as well. You have two great characters who seem to be really polar opposites in terms of how they approach the sport, in terms of how they comport themselves in the public eye. You have two great athletes, both of them having everything to prove for all the chips, for all the bragging rights, for all the gold. Even if the WBO belt were to be absent from this fight, you would not really be starved for attention when marketing this fight, even if you could be potentially deprived of live gate. And I hope, again, I hope, especially for the UK fans, that this fight can be made, and it can be made in an atmosphere where there would be fans in at the actual venue, because I don't think this will happen, at least for another generation. Um, and if all the belts are involved, this is going to be for the first time when a four belt in the four belt era that an undisputed heavyweight champion will emerge. The first undisputed heavyweight champion since Lennox Lewis will emerge. So it's a great story. It's an incredible athletic event. It's great for boxing, but it will also make a great, I think, advertisement for the sport in the eyes of the casual fans as well.
And that's a very true factor. What we're looking for is we're looking for events in our boxing fraternity that can grow our sport in the worst time in the world. You know that most of our venues are shut down, and we need to get big events going for boxing so the online, the pay-per-view, and everything else can generate the income and the funds for the big events. But I will say to you, we've still got lots of fights to look forward to in 2021. We've got big and huge fights that we can get that I can't wait for 2021. And I just hope most of those fights get made. But in between any of these other fights that we've mentioned, is there any fight that stands out for you that we might not have mentioned, or we have, that you're really looking forward to for 2021?
I think, yes, absolutely. I think I'm really looking forward for this fight that Top Rank has been teasing us with is a fight that promises to pit undisputed against undisputed, with Teofimo moving up from 135 to 140 to face the winner of Jose Ramirez and Josh Taylor. Now, I'm already looking forward to that fight. I know it's not been announced officially, but I think it will happen sooner than later in 2021. And I would really love to see Teofimo Lopez moving up to face the winner of that fight. I think that would be a great legacy fight for Teofimo Lopez. I think that would be an amazing fight for whoever emerges as the winner. I think that fight will have a market, will have an audience, whoever wins and becomes undisputed at 140. But again, in another world where travel is back, where we can have these fights at some of these wonderful venues for boxing, the MGM Grands, the Alamo Dome, Jerry World in Dallas, or the new Raiders Stadium in Las Vegas. Imagine, Taylor becoming undisputed at 140 and having this fight of Josh Taylor versus Teofimo Lopez with a live audience. All these fans traveling with him from the UK, from Scotland to the US. Imagine the kind of festival and celebration we would have in the lead up to that fight. And imagine the kind of stories it will generate. Imagine the kind of attention that it will draw to our sport in the US and in the UK and thus globally. And imagine the kind of legacy it will be leave behind for both fighters, win or lose. I think that really is maybe the number one fight that I would like to see in 2021.
Hey, I mean, that's a real big fight. You have every right to have that as your biggest fight in 2021. I think a lot of people are wanting the Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury 2021, Ryan Garcia, Luke Campbell's already been done for 2021, Estrada, Chocolito 2021 is done, Josh Taylor, Ramirez for undisputed 2021. Big fight for us. I think we got to get, these other fights bubbling up. We want Edgar Berlanga to start showing us that if Edgar Berlanga can fight someone like Daniel Jacobs to the end of 2021, Gabriel Rosado, or even a John Ryder for Edgar Berlanga, we would like to see a step up for him. But just like D Calico says, 100% rap star D Calico, Merry Christmas to you. Low Blow Boxing, Merry Christmas to you. Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua for the undisputed will be the number one fight for boxing in Las Vegas. But you got to appreciate this. You can't take that fight away from us British fans. That's once in a lifetime event. That heavyweight event you're talking about for the undisputed, you cannot rob the British fans away from their own soil. That fight has to happen in England.
I think he's trolling you. I think he's trolling you, bro.
Yeah, can you hear me? I can't hear you. Can you hear me, Saddam?
It's a little choppy.
It sounds really bad. Let me see if they can hear me. Yeah, can you hear me now?
It's a little better, but still there's a little bit of white noise.
Okay, let me just fix the audio in a sec.
Okay.
Just stay in the building.
All right, let's just say what until our host is back. Salute to everyone in the chat. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. I think Low Blow, you're just trying to mess with Rapstar by saying it should be in Las Vegas.
Yeah, 1-2. Can you hear me now?
Much better.
Yeah, so that fight cannot happen in Vegas. You cannot rob the British fans from one of the biggest events in the history or in the present of the future for something that the Britain and the whole of United Kingdom is going to want that fight in England, mate. Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua is not leaving England. If it leaves England, the fans will be never forgiving till the day they die. I promise you that much, mate. That's a fight that has to happen in United Kingdom. But
I think you have every right. You have every right to ask for that fight to be in the UK, to ask for that fight to be in Wembley. Imagine how beautiful that would be. Or, I don't know, in the new Tottenham Stadium or in the Millennium Stadium, wherever, just with 75, 80, 90,000 fans. I'm sure that would be a huge event. But if there's any threat of taking that fight away from the UK. That's not going to come from Las Vegas. That's not going to come from the US. You know what I'm already talking about, but we don't need to fight over that. I think the UK fans deserve that fight. Maybe the rematch might take place elsewhere, but for sure, if the venues are open, that fight has to happen, and probably has to happen in Wembley.
Yeah, thank you for that. You give people a heart attack if that fight didn't happen in England. But what I will say to you, right, we've got big fights to look forward to. We need these fights to happen. Just like people have just come in. Stephen has just come in the building. He wants Anthony Joshua Fury. He wants Terence Crawford, Errol Spence. We want Tank Davis against Ryan Garcia if Ryan can beat Luke. We want Devin Haney against Javier Fortuna. Devin Haney against the winner of Ryan Garcia, Luke Campbell. We want Teofimo Lopez if Devin Haney wins those fights against Devin Haney. We want Jamal Charlo against GGG. There's big fights. Is there any fights that we might have missed out in your mind before, you know what I mean, in 2021? Because there's a lot of fights that can be made. We talked about Regis Prograis against Cerveda. I mean, we got Estrada against Chocolito. We got big fights, but there must be some other fights that I've missed out that you might be able to help us with.
Yeah, I think I would move a little down to the bantamweight category, and I would really love to see. There was a lot of rescheduling and canceling around the WBC belt there that the French Nordine Oubaali holds, and he was going to defend that against Nonito Donaire. And I think he couldn't travel from out of France, so he became the champion in recess, and Donaire was going to fight someone for that belt, and then Donaire tested positive for COVID.
Yeah, but
and he claimed that he was negative. Whatever it was, beyond that, I would love to see unification at 118 that involves the monster Naoya Inoue facing either the WBC belt holder or John Riel Casemiro, or if Rigo can beat Casemiro and take that belt off
Rigondeaux versus Inoue. That would still be a good fight.
That would be a great fight as well.
Because Steven and Loblo, they want Inoue versus Tank and Inoue versus Loma. And Inoue's at 126 right now, right? So
he's at 118. He's at 118.
No, yeah, what is he at right now?
118.
He's not at 122?
I don't think so. Am I? No, 118.
Then how would people want to start demanding Inoue versus Lomachenko or Tank Davis? I don't think.
I'm a sweet and kind person. I'm not gonna say anything, but that's as absurd as demanding Triple G to face Usyk for a cruiserweight belt. So I don't think that.
That
should be
can't happen. Inoue and Tank, Inoue and Loma cannot happen. They're too far apart. You get what I mean? They're too far apart in weight.
Absolutely.
No, so we've got this fight on 31st of December with Tanaka versus Ioka. I mean, that's still a big fight for
Ioka. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big fight for the Japanese warriors, isn't it?
Yes, I have been researching a little bit, but I really, to this day, I don't know how I can watch it in the US. So I have to find a way, and I have to find a way quick. But you see, Ioka is a 4-weight champion. Tanaka is a 3-weight champion who is moving up to Ioka's weight, which is super flyweight, right? 115 pounds. That's a great showdown for Japan. And if you would remember, the Inoue Donaire fight was also around this time of the year, last year. So that seems to be a great tradition for the Japanese to have fights, right Christmas Day or on New Year's Eve. I really want to watch that fight, and I hope, I hope I can. But that's the interesting thing, I know people had a lot to nitpick and complain about the top-ranked pound-for-pound list. But one of the things that list exposes is that it's really a mishmash of a lot of personal opinions without having clearly established criteria to pick the top 10. Because if we have, and look, don't take me wrong, I'm actually a huge fan of Naoya Inoue. But who can explain to me what makes Inoue number 3 as a 3-division champion? And what kind of logic can at the same time keep out a 4-weight champion like Kazuto Ioka? Right?
Yeah, if you want to go under credentials and you want to go accolades, the pound for pound list is very subjective and very controversial. So you can.
The only difference between someone like Inoue and Ioka and Tanaka is that the first one is promoted by Top Rank and the other two are not. So, without putting it that obviously, certainly we have to, we have to ask questions, and ask questions that are beyond the skin color of this fighter or that fighter, and try to produce lists that have clear criteria, logic, and reasoning behind them. That's why I really appreciate Ring IQ's list, because he has.
So you got messages coming right now. Cabin Chili Recipe says that Inoue has done more in his 20 fights than what Ioka has done. What would you say to that, to Cabin Chili Recipe?
Is 4 a bigger number or 3?
4.
So being a 3-weight world champion is less or more than being a 4-weight world champion? I know Inoue is unified in bantamweight now, but as far as I know, Ioka has been unified at mini flyweight before. So you have a 4-weight world champion who has been unified in one of those weight divisions, and you have a 3-weight champion who has been unified in one of those divisions. The only way Inoue can logically be ranked ahead of Ioka is to say Ioka has already 2 losses in his record, and I would rather rank an undefeated fighter higher than the defeated fighter, which I can respect, but that's an arguable point. That's not simply objective. If you are saying Inoue has done more in terms of remaining undefeated, I disagree that that's a bigger achievement. I don't think that the zero is sacred. I think I much rather like fighters who take challenges and who fail, if necessary, on the path of carving a bigger legacy. But I think from an objective standpoint, being a 4-weight world champion is a bigger achievement than being a 3-weight world champion.
Right. I mean, it just depends on the competition you face, the ranked opponent, the opposition, in order for you to get there. Also, so I mean, there's an argument to be made, but at the end of the day, you can dice it. But you know, Inoue seems to be the most favorite fighter coming out of Japan. You know, he's classed as a monster. The man's got a lot of strength for such a small dude. He's getting through his opponents in style. I think he's the future of Japanese boxing with the rest of them, which are so many of them now coming up through Japan. Those lower weight divisions are getting overlooked. Only the hardcore fans seem to want to be more in touch with those divisions. They're not really for the casuals. You know what I mean?
I think so. I agree. And I agree with Gabon chili recipes. Inoue has accomplished quite a lot, and pretty much as Crawford. I don't disagree, and I think if he manages to put another title under his belt at 118, or maybe if he becomes undisputed at 118, I think he deserves to be in everyone's top 5, top 3 for sure. I'm not contesting just his particular placement in that list. It's just an easy way to point out that when broadcasters choose particular people to place on their top 10 list, they have other criteria than purely achievement. Because when it comes to achievement, there are boxers, and there are Japanese boxers who on paper look just as impressive, if not arguably more, than Inoue.
Look, I want to get to what's realistic. And Stephen4722 says, what's the realistic fight for Crawford? It's Sean Porter. Crawford and Sean Porter looks like a fight that's more realistic than Errol Spence and Terence Crawford. I think we're excited to see the Sean Porter-Terence Crawford fight because Sean Porter comes with continuous pressure from the first round to the 12th round. I would like to see how Terence Crawford would deal with Sean Porter's aggression and pressure from the opening bell to how Sean Porter fights. I'd like to see that fight, and I'm with Stephen on that fight. And he'd like to see Teofimo Lopez versus Devin Haney. Now, that's a fight which is cooking. If Devin Haney steps up and fights a top 5 opponent and puts a beating or puts a masterclass against a top 5 opponent, I'll tell you something, Devin Haney and Teofimo Lopez would be a big fight, especially if Devin Haney proves himself to the boxing world that he's the real deal and he's the truth. And he can do that with the top 5 opponents if he could get himself in position for that fight. But definitely the Terence Crawford and Sean Porter is a more realistic fight that we're going to get in 2021. How do you feel about that fight, DJ Saddam? Terence Crawford versus Sean Porter.
I like that fight. And, I think on the one hand, I'm always skeptical. I feel like there are a select group of fighters who can never do enough, who can never get love from certain groups of fans, who will never be able to get the kind of praise and appreciation because of certain prejudices that are held against them or against their promoter or against possibly also their ethnicity, their race, etc. So with that being said, I think there is a legitimate concern that a lot of people have raised about Crawford, which is the fact that in the welterweight division, he has not necessarily faced the caliber of opponents that someone like Errol Spence has faced. And let's remember that in the build-up of Porter versus Spence as a unification fight in the welterweight division, Errol Spence has said time and time again, I'm going to knock out Sean Porter. I'm going to KO him. I'm going to take him out. He has never faced a caliber of opponent like me. He fights like an in-shape street fighter. He has no skill. He fights like he is drowning in water, so on and so forth. But we have all seen what kind of challenge Sean Porter has posed to Errol Spence. We have all seen how Errol Spence looked in the press conference after that win. Sean Porter, I think, is a ferocious opponent. That's a difficult fight for anyone in the welterweight division. And I agree with the suggestion that none of the fighters that Crawford so far faced at 147 have posed him the kinds of challenges that Porter has posed to his opponent. So
let me ask everybody this. Let me ask you this. If Terence Crawford, we know is a switch hitter, we know he can go southpaw. I want to know if Terence Crawford puts on a good show against Showtime Sean Porter, will that register him as the real deal at welterweight division through the hate that he's getting right now? He gets a lot of negativity, a lot of criticism all over the fucking world. The man's put himself in good positions, but they never appreciate his career. Terence Crawford is hated in boxing because of the opponents that he hasn't faced. So how would Crawford stop that hate? If he beats Porter, I want everybody to start realizing that Terence Crawford is the real deal, and he opposes a threat for Errol Spence Jr. for the king status of the welterweight division. I think Sean Porter and Terence Crawford will be a great fight. And if Crawford stops Porter, like Gamebred says, Gamebred in the building, Merry Christmas to you, Gamebred. If Sean Porter loses to Terence Crawford more decisively than Errol Spence did with Sean Porter, Terence Crawford better get the respect that he deserves in the boxing world. Do you agree with me, Saddam?
I think that's why I like that fight more than any other opponent, any other top five welterweight that Crawford might face, because it's a common opponent with Errol Spence, and it's a fight that can be the platform for Crawford to finally make the kind of statement. I can already hear the narratives. I can already see the hate continuing. I can already hear people saying, but Spence had beaten Porter already. Thurman had beaten Porter already. Again, as I said, for some people, it will never be enough. But finally, Crawford would have something on paper, something that can be appreciated by an impartial observer, by a good chunk of
Yeah, but we're
boxing
not
fans.
fucking blind. We're not blind as fans. Game Bread, Chili, Gabe and Chili Recipes, Stephen 4722. We're not blind. If they said Terence Crawford beats Sean Porter more better than Errol Spence, people are gonna demand for the fucking fight. There'll be no
As they should.
there'll be no fucking
Deservedly.
capping. Right now they're treating Terence Crawford as the poor man of the welterweight, like he's a beggar of the welterweight. Why the fuck do they treat Terence Crawford with so much hate, bro? And you look at the hate that he gets, it's all in America, bro. He gets a lot of hate from his own country. Terence Crawford doesn't get the accolades that he deserves. So if he shoots at Sean Porter and he beats him more than Errol Spence, the boxing world better fucking start to respect him, because he will demand that respect. And he will demand it. And then this 50-50 talk can start to happen, because he's a registered, certified, 147 welterweight true champion that people don't give him no credit. They say that he hasn't fought nobody, that the man's been capping, and he fights low opposition. Well, just to give him a chance to shut everybody up. Because even the way he beats those low oppositions, he beats them very convincingly, doesn't he?
Absolutely.
So why does he get a lot?
Yeah.
Why does Terence Crawford get a lot of hate from your own country, mate?
Again, I'm not in business of psychoanalyzing people. I don't want to get into all these nasty political debates around it. But I think at least a part of it has to do with, let me give a quick example from the world of rap. Why do you think someone like Nelly never got the respect that was given so easily to anyone and their uncle from the East Coast, and anyone from their uncle and their uncle from the West Coast?
I don't know. I'm not from America, bro.
Okay, well,
You got to explain.
Nelly came from the West, much like Bob Crawford comes from the Midwest, from Omaha, Nebraska. So because he comes from a place, I think, in the boxing world that is not so easily recognized as a mecca of boxing, as New York is, as Southern California is, as Texas increasingly is, as Philadelphia once was and still is in many ways. I feel he has much more to prove than any other boxer. I'm just going to say that without going into politics that are associated with certain promoters and how much hate Bob Arum gets for whatever reason. But I think that has a lot to do with it. And I think even Deontay Wilder faced a similar hurdle, at least before he became a world champion. Because I remember listening to a lot of interviews that he gave that people were laughing at him, especially at amateur competitions when he was telling people that he is from Alabama. And they were telling him to go play football or whatever else because they just they couldn't stomach the idea that a world champion boxer or an Olympian can come from Alabama. I feel there is a certain elitism within the world of boxing for people who come from the country. I think even someone like Roy Jones Jr. faced this on his come up. And you might remember that he loved referring to himself as a country boy. And he was proud of it. And he was proud of being from Pensacola, Florida, rather than Philadelphia, rather than New York, rather than Los Angeles. So I feel there's a little bit of that as well, that Bob Crawford comes from nowhere in particular when it comes to the roadmap established in this country in terms of recognizable cultures of boxing. So he has to work twice as hard to prove that he is just as good, if not better, than anyone else. And thank God he seems to be the kind of champion who has that drive within him.
So you think at the end of the day, a lot of the discredit comes from Errol? I mean, some of the people in the chat said Rapstar, the discredit comes from Errol Spence fanboys. A lot of the people who just like to discredit him, and also people who don't like a certain fighter, they go for a certain different fighter. You mentioned him coming from Alabama. What's the big difference between that and Texas? Texas love Errol Spence, am I right?
That's right. Spence is from DeSoto, Texas, Dallas area, basically, Texas.
Yeah, I mean, Errol Spence seems to have a fan base. He has a whole bunch of people in Texas. They seem to love Errol Spence. He seems to get the more notability, the more credibility. I'm not saying he hasn't fought better opponents. He has. But it's like they don't recognize Terence Crawford as they recognize Errol Spence Jr. It seems that way. I mean, it's only maybe because Terence Crawford hasn't fought the opponents that needs to give him the credibility in the welterweight division where he needs to be. Is that partly it's got to do with his own promotional team, and partly it's got to do with where the PBC and Top Rank don't have mutual business adventures. Is that right? Most of it, right?
I heard most of what you said, but I still think you have some audio problems. It's coming through a little choppy.
Okay, I'm going to fix them and come back. Can you carry on talking about the Terence Crawford, Errol Spence situation?
Of course.
While I can audio?
Of course. A couple of things. As far as I know, well, Texas, in terms of the land mass, is the biggest state in the U.S. In terms of the population, I think it's probably one of the biggest. But when it comes to the largest cities, Texas has a number of them, and both Dallas and Houston, I think, are in the top 5 in terms of the number of people. So And Omaha is a relatively large city, but I don't think you can compare it to Dallas. I don't think you can compare it to Houston. And Texas certainly is incomparable in terms of its size and in terms of the size of its population to a place like Nebraska. So it's really hard to compare. And again, Texas at least had George Foreman. I really can't remember before Bud Crawford if we had any world champions in professional boxing who hailed from the state of Nebraska. But anyway, that's a minor point. I agree with people in the chat. I get tired from talking about PBC. I get tired about bickering with fanboys. I think that's not an interesting conversation. I think that doesn't enrich our boxing. I don't think that improves our knowledge of the sport. I think ultimately it kills our passion and joy in the sport. So as much as I agree with what everyone else is saying in the chat, I think honestly there's no excuse not to make this fight. I think we deserve this fight in 2021. I would really love to see it, but if it doesn't happen, I think Crawford and Porter is a great fight. I think it will be also a great fight for Crawford to make a statement that will be heard loud and clear by most fans of boxing. Haters are still going to hate. You can't do anything to appease them. You can't do enough to please them. So we are not really talking or preaching to them, but I would love to see that fight. And I think that's actually a realistic fight, because of all people who fight under that promotional banner, Sean Porter is the one who isn't interested in towing the company line. He seems to have more freer approach to his own ventures, and I think that fight can be made in 2021.
Okay, that's amazing, man. And on that point, I just want to say this. We should be getting ready and excited for a great new year. Merry Christmas to everybody. I just want to let everybody know we're going to be talking about a show in a few days, which is going to be some of the greats, some of the mysteries in boxing, to Sonny Liston's, Edwin Valero, Arturo Gatti, Argulo. We're going to be talking about fighters where some of the young generation might not know about, but these were forces in boxing. Edwin Valero was one of the most ferocious men in boxing, in the featherweight, in the lightweight, and he's a man that needs to be remembered in boxing. Arturo Gatti had the biggest heart in boxing. He might not have been the most technical boxer, but he had the biggest heart in boxing. And Argulo, he was fighting not just for himself, but at some point, it seems like he was fighting against his own country. But we will talk about that show in the next couple days. And the man who's going to be doing this show with us is a great man who's on the show right now, DJ Saddam, and another man, which will be coming out of England, Rope-a-Dope. And DJ Saddam, I hope you know you're getting ready for the show for Edwin Valero, Arturo Gatti, and Argulo, some of the great Sonny Liston, in the mysterious ways that they were the best, and how there were so many different controversies about their life behind their boxing career. I'm sure you're ready for that show and excited for that show coming up soon.
I'm very excited. I've been watching tape the whole day in preparation for that show, so I look forward to it already.
Yeah, and apart from that, I'm wishing everybody an amazing Christmas. I hope everybody has a great new year. We'll be catching up on some boxing fights coming up on the 31st of December. Inoka versus Tanaka. I know that we're going to be on live for that fight. And then we're going to be getting ready for the new year with Ryan Garcia versus Luke Campbell. So let's get ready. 2021's coming. We had a tough 2020. And I just hope everybody over here has a great 2021. I'm wishing you guys the best. Boxing will come back again once the venues open up. And as fans, Rapstar's going to be going to the real main events. I'll be sending you live videos, live updates once that starts to happen. I'm amazed. I'm blessed. I'm over here to speak about boxing. God bless everyone. I'd like you to say a touch before we shut down the show. DJ Saddam, wouldn't you have some closing thoughts, brother?
Merry Christmas again, and happy holidays to everyone. Thank you, Rapstar, for inviting me. It's really a pleasure and a privilege to talk boxing with you. And I appreciate everyone in the chat for sending in the questions, for sharing their opinions. It's really great to be part of YTBC, and I'm glad that there is at least a pocket that's established by people like you, Rapstar, where we could, talk, sit down, talk, agree, disagree, but talk respectfully to each other about boxing, about fights that we want, about some of the legendary fighters that we still miss, and also about some of the emerging stars. So I really look forward to the next year. And again, thank you. Thanks.
Hey, God bless everyone. Silvers, 2011, T-Tone, Stephen, everybody who came into the building, Cabin Chili Recipes, not to forget, Game Bread, all you man them. Respect to the brethren them. Respect to all my boxing people. We love this sport. D Hodges, everybody in the building who stopped by. We appreciate all of you guys. And let's get ready. 2021, hopefully will be the best year we all want. 2021, we can't wait. We're out of it. Peace out to the chat. Peace out to the panel. We bless you. See you later.